How's it, South Africans and people of the world? My name is Amahle-Imvelo Jaxx, and this is my podcast, Jaxx of All Trades, where we speak about everything from politics to pop culture, skills, and people stories, because every jolt is a goat in the making. Right, before I start this episode, I just want to let you know this is the second time I'm recording this because Black Native was ready. The cameras were on. And guess who forgot to press record? These three levels of government actually work in tandem.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
Press record. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. Guys, I did the whole thing. So we're doing it again now. Maybe I'll have it memorized. But so let's get into this, right? So when we spoke about this podcast, we said we're doing everything from politics to pop culture, right? So today we are speaking about the South African government and how does it actually work, right? We're trying to understand what's national, what's local, and why you matter, especially considering in 2026, we will probably be doing our municipal elections, right? And just to give you a bit of a backstory, I had quite an intense debate with my brother in 2024 about voting. He's a Gen Z, and he was basically saying, like, I'm not going to vote. And we fought, and we were fighting in the family group, and then my mother even had to come in and referee, like, like it was nasty. And I remember saying to him, you constantly complain that you don't have electricity, especially as a student living in, Pretoria, in a student area. You're always complaining about electricity, but you don't want to vote. Guess who was in that voting line at 8 a.m.? It was my brother. I had won the argument. Everything is a competition in my family. So yeah, today we are speaking about and learning just the basics of how our government works, right? And this is something I only learned in varsity, which I think is crazy. What do you mean you guys don't teach us how governments work in high school when you expect us to vote when we turn 18? But anyway, I'm here. I'm going to do it. And the way I'm going to do it, it's going to be fun, I promise. So when I explain it, I'm going to, kind of use parties, because that's the one thing you guys know how to do, is to throw it out, right? So I'm going to use quite literally a festival as if it's government to explain the branches of government and to kind of explain, the different levels, the different national, that's not the English, but the different levels of governance, right? But before we get into that, as always, like I said in the first episode, we are doing what is called the Jaxx part, which is basically me explaining to you how I landed on this topic, right? And so I landed on this topic because, like I said, in explaining the story about my brother, let's be honest. Nobody knows how this thing works. We just show up at the polls and, we vote, but we don't really understand the magnitude of our vote. We don't understand governance. So that's why, I thought let's do this episode and kind of just get the basics. There's not enough time for me to teach you the whole thing, but we're going to start with the basics first, and then you guys are going to comment, you're going to like, you're going to share, you're going to subscribe, all right? And you're going to let me know what's missing or what other things you would like to understand. So what's the Jaxx part? We are speaking about parliament, governance, provinces. We are trying to ask and understand if the problem is the people, if the problem is politics, or if it's the power itself, right? And with every episode, I'm going to try and give a fact because I love a fun fact. Fun facts are fun. And so my fun fact, it's actually not a fun fact. Well, it is a fun fact. It depends who you stand by when it comes to the elections. For me personally, I look at voting, I don't have any affiliation to any political party. I look to the political party that is actually speaking to me that year and what they're saying. So my vote has changed over the years to different political parties who are speaking to me. But that's not what we're talking about today. We are actually just learning foundation phase. So pen, ne paper, emdaneni. Thanks. So our fact for this episode is that 2024 was the first time since Nelson Rolihlahla, Dada, Deebs, Nelly M. Mandela Since he took office, 2024 was the first time the ANC did not have an absolute majority. So now you're probably asking yourself, what is that? So in parliament, right, we have 400 seats. And when these parties are campaigning and when we are voting, they are essentially trying to win as many seats as possible so that kukhale esabo isicathulo. And for years, it was the ANC, right? In 2019, they had 230 seats. And then 2024 came around and people's dissatisfaction with the governance of this country became quite evident in how, they didn't win an absolute majority. And an absolute majority quite literally means that, like, you need 50% plus one. So if there's 400 seats in parliament, you essentially need 201 seats to have an absolute majority. So like I said, in 2019, they had 230 seats, which kind of means that they don't really have to consult anyone when they're making laws or when they're trying to pass things because they have all the votes. And I think a good example of this is the GNU and what happened with the VAT situation this year, right? If you recall, we are waiting for the budget speech. Me, I'm there, notepad, pen, and then they say it's postponed. What do you mean it's postponed? Well, for the first time, they've now had to consult other parties, and the other parties have to agree on this finance bill. Usually, the cabinet, which was only the ANC, so the executive, which is the president and his ministers, would sit, they would decide on a budget, they would go to parliament, they would know that everyone in the ANC is going to vote for this budget, it would pass, Bob's your uncle, we move on. Now things are a little bit different because they don't have that absolute majority, so they have to consult your UDMs, they have to consult your IFPs, and they kind of have to get them in their corner in order to get things passed. And so that's why we had that whole budget, situation earlier on this year. But another reason why I thought this episode was important, like I said in the intro, is that in 2026, we will probably be going into municipal elections, right? And for me, I feel like these are the most important elections. I think people always look at national and they're like, this is the important vote. For me, it's municipal. Because when I think about municipal, I'm thinking about the person who's going to fix the potholes that I'm complaining about, the person who's going to make sure my rubbish is being picked up. And just to kind of explain to you that difference between local and municipal, and national is ESCOM, right? When the entire country has a problem with load shedding, that's a national problem. But when your substation in your neighborhood blows, and you don't have electricity for like 3 days, that's a municipal problem. And that is actually the person that you voted for when you voted in your municipal elections. So I've always found them to be the most important ones because those are the ones that directly affect me. That's the change that I directly see outside of public hospitals, et cetera, et cetera. So this is why it's important, because you are essentially voting for the people that are going to make sure that your bin is picked up on time and that your potholes are fixed and that there's lights in these streets. Also, Johannesburg, it's dark. If any of the people in the municipalities are watching this, it's dark. We are trying to swerve the potholes. We cannot see at night. Do something. We need street lights back, Johannesburg. Oh my God. I've had to fix so many wheels and buy so many wheels and fix so many rooms. But anyway, I digress. I actually want to just read you some stats so that I can maybe shock you a little bit and maybe show you why it's so actually important for you to vote. All right. So according to a report by the Konrad Adenauer Foundation, less than 20% of individuals aged 20 to 35 registered to vote in the 2021 local elections. All right. Furthermore, according to a number of sources, including the Electoral Institute for Sustainable Democracy, in the 2024 general election, 42.3 million South Africans were eligible to vote. 27.8 million of those people registered to vote, and only 16.3 million voted. And I bet those 16.3 million were our parents. We keep making jokes that, next elections, you must just lock your mother in the house and hide her ID. That's illegal, by the way. Don't do that. But the reality is that what we should be doing is getting young people out there to vote. And so that's why I'm about to teach you how the South African government works. So this episode is your prep class. This is your tutorial for the 2026 election. So when the time comes for you to vote, you're voting with your chest and you understand exactly what you're voting for, right? Okay, cool. So now the governance. So let's start with the three branches, right? It's almost as if like there's three jobs in governance, right? You've got the legislator, which writes the laws, right? Those are the people in parliament who pass the law, who votes on laws, who come up with laws. I think Musi Maimane at this time of this recording is trying to pass a law that, when employers are, inviting you to come apply for a job, that they shouldn't actually be allowed to see your former payslip. That's what he's currently lobbying for. He's going to try and get other people to vote for this thing. That is what the legislator does, right? Then we've got the executive. The executive runs the country. That's the presidents, that's the ministers, that's the blue light brigade that you see stopping in traffic, right? And usually, as I said before, it was only comprised of ANC members. And now we've got the DA in there. We've got the UDM as deputy minister. I think with General Ubantu Olomisa as deputy minister of defense, yes, which is actually so apt because he is the general after all. And then we've got the judiciary. And essentially the judiciary does the checks and balances, right? They check if the rules are being followed, that, the laws that parliament is making, the decisions that the executive, so the president and his ministers are making are actually, being done, So think of it like a reality TV show, for example. One writes the script, that's the legislator. One produces it, that's the executive. And the one is HR. Nobody likes HR, but HR gets things done. And that's the judiciary, right? So now let's get into our festival. If South Africa was a festival, how would the three layers now of governance work, right? So we've got national, we've got provincial, and then we've got local/municipal. So if we start at the top, if it was national government, right? Not if, it actually is. National government is the festival organizers, what I used to do. So it's your Antelantal, your Homecomings, your Rocking the Daisies, your Glen 21s, that produce festivals like Hey Neighbor. That's what national government does, right? They secure the sponsors. They secure the sponsors, they set the dates for the festivals, they book the main acts, and they decide the overall vibe of the party, right? So now let's apply that to governance. They are the big players behind the scenes, the people in national level, right? They deal with diplomacy, they deal with finance, they deal with foreign affairs. Us, Cyril going to America to go speak to Donald Trump, that is national level, right? They make up the national policies and state security. Cool, so you've got the festival organizers who make the festival. Then we've got the provincial level. That's the next level of governance, right? And that is the production team, right? When you're walking around a festival and you see people with radios running around and making sure that everything is working, that's provincial, right? I used to be one of those people. I used to love a radio. In fact, because I'm a little bit of a control freak. So I would like to know what everything that's happening in my festival at all times, right? So provincial, they make sure that the generator that's been booked works, that the medics are on standby, the bar is stocked, the artist arrives on time and performs. So essentially, if we apply that now to governance, we're talking about the people that handle public health, that handle infrastructure, education, and coordination with national. These levels of governance aren't separate from each other. They are intertwined, right? Cool. Then we've got the last level of governance, which is then local or municipal, right? Think of them as like the suppliers and the venue crew, right? We're talking about the media teams. So for example, Black Native is shooting this for me. They would be in the local level of governance, right? We're talking about the workers on site, the ones that are cleaning your toilets, the ones that are setting up the fencing, the ones that are setting up the stage that the artist is going to perform on, that the festival organizer booked. Do you see? Is it coming together? I hope it is. So they are, excuse me, the bartenders, who are serving you food. They are not serving you food, serving you drinks, the food vendors, etc., etc. So once we applied this to governance, we're now talking about ward councillors, the metro police, the people, fixing or ignoring your potholes, power cuts, housing, refuse, water, etc., etc. So let me look at it like this analogy, right? So if the national government doesn't do their job, there is no money, right? No plan, no permits for this beautiful festival of South Africa that we are throwing, right? If the provincial level doesn't do their job, the medics don't show up, the stage collapses when the artist is performing, chaos ensues, vibe sucks. Okay. And then if local and municipal don't do their jobs, then the vibe dies because the toilets are dirty. There's a slow bar, there's terrible service at the food vendors. In fact, the food vendor ran out of food. You're hungry, you're bleak, maybe you're even cold now. That's essentially why these levels of governance are all connected. So every level of governance matters. It's not optional. They're interconnected. So just to emphasize municipal power, because we're going into the 2026 municipal elections, when you're sitting in the darkness, it's technically not Cyril's fault, unless it's load shedding, right? We said that. It's the people you voted for at local level who are supposed to make sure that your substation is being serviced, right? And in 2026, this is a call to action. I want you guys to, take this with a pinch of salt, but take it seriously. To stop complaining and go to the polls and vote and make sure that the people that you're voting for, you've researched them. So, who is your counselor? Who are you? So who are you going to call? Ghostbusters. Okay, cool. So that's essentially me wrapping up how the levels of governance work. I know it's a little bit thin right now, but I also don't want to overload you, with information and kind of now speaking about white papers, green papers, how the laws are made, where constitutional courts, high courts come in. We'll get to that. And your responsibility is to share, subscribe, and comment below and let me know what other things you would like, to understand better about governance. Remember, I said this is the foundation phase. This is, this is the beginning, essentially. And so obviously with every episode, we do have a fun segment, right? And I was thinking to myself, what if government was the club? Because that's also all I know. I'm sorry, guys. I'm always going to take it back to groove. Also because that's all you guys know how to do, is to groove. Mogodu Monday. Then you break on Tuesday. Then you break on Wednesday. Thursday, I know there's something. First Thursday. Friday, it's even a half job. 3 p.m., you're already at the office if you're not having office drinks. Saturday, see on. Sunday, see on. Where are we? Back again, Mahodu Mondays. So I know that the only way you guys are going to relate to this stuff is if I make it about a pateki. So for our fun segment, if government was the club, Parliament would be at the door with the bouncers and the guest list, right? They are the line of defense, almost. The local council would be the bathroom situation. And do you have a cleaning lady? Every time I go to the club, there's always a lady there who's making sure the basins are clean, there's toilet paper, she's mopping the floor. I don't know what the men's bathroom is like. I'm sure it's disgusting because you guys are nasty. But the girls' bathroom always has a lady there making sure it's cute, it's clean. And a girls' bathroom is so nice. Girls are sharing lipsticks. Oh, you look so good. Let me fix your outfit. I digress. Anyway, so local council is making sure that the bathroom is clean, right? So that the party is nice, so that you can fix your makeup nicely, right? The president is the headline DJ. He's the one doing there. He's Black Coffee. He's Shimza. Okay, he's the main guy. All right, that's who we're watching. That's who we're here for. He's going to set the tone and the vibe of this club. Are we sitting down on our phones or are we actually dancing? And on that note, clubs, please can you bring back dance floors? Like, we want to dance again. I get it, sections make money, but like, bring back a dance floor. Damn. Anyway, the judiciary is then the head of security. Now, if you've ever been to a festival, you've hardly ever seen a head of security. Head of security is always in the production tent. He's got his radio on. He's listening to every channel. He's making sure that, oh, the artist has been secured and that he's arrived safely in his area. He's making sure that there's no issues at the gate. He's making sure that, like, oh, if there's an issue of someone's phone is stolen, the lost and found is taken care of. He's just sitting in the back, listening, making decisions on your behalf, making sure that you're safe. That is the judiciary. And then last but not least, the citizens. You are the groovists. And like we've said, nobody does it better than you, South Africa. Nobody throws or rather enjoys a groove more than you. So essentially, that's how we would be operating in a club if we were talking about government, right? And so we're almost nearing the end of this episode. Where my time at? You know, I'm getting better and better at this. They're not so long. This is 30 minutes, by the way. So I'm always looking at it to be like, because you know I can yap. You know, I can yap and yap away. But so this is like my timekeeper to make sure that I'm not overdoing it. Right. So just to wrap it up, you know, we've got the government, which has 3 branches: national, executive, legislature, and judiciary. And then we've got the 3 levels of governance. We've got national, provincial, municipal, and local. Right. Local government is your water, your roads, your electricity, the real life stuff. Okay. 2026. Guys, is your chance, you know, to choose who's in charge of that stuff, you know, and do you know who your ward councillor is? And I've asked this question because I don't. I won't lie to you, I don't. I remember the one year we were voting for municipal elections and I was hungover, okay? But I like to do my research. I think I maybe voted at like 5 p.m. And I was looking through, you know, these different ward councillors that I'd seen. I live in a predominantly white neighborhood, so number 1, I knew ANC stood no chance in my neighborhood. Number 2, I would never vote for the Democratic Alliance. I'm sorry, my father was a freedom fighter, so you won't catch me. And the EFF was the only one who had a young, you know, councillor. It was also the first year, I think. What's Herman Mashaba's party again? I don't remember. But anyway, he was all up in my neighborhood. And then I remember also looking at the DA councillor and being like, you are 76. Hang it up and go play with your grandchildren. Why are you trying to be a ward councillor? Anyway, so even in my most hungover state, I still took the time to look at who the ward councillors in my neighborhood were. And then I made my vote based on what I thought would be the best for my neighborhood. I'll never tell you who my vote is. I'm not affiliated. I'm not affiliated to anyone. My vote is about who's talking to me that year, who I'm hearing. So next year, let's do our research before it's time to vote. Don't be like me, hungover, strolling to the station, you know, just like regretting your life. But I do love South Africa for the public holidays. Because I heard in the United States, they don't even get a public holiday. Can you imagine? This is truly the greatest country in the world. So yeah, let me know what you guys would like to know about governance, what you would like to know about 2026. What information can I give to you? Maybe we'll do a part 2 of how South African government works, depending on your engagement, you know. And let me know if you know who your ward councillor is. Are they useful? Are they ghosting the entire area? And let's start paying attention because 2026 is around the corner. And I want you voting because our lives depend on it. We've seen the state of South Africa. So that's me for today. That was a mouthful. This is the second time I'm recording this, but I actually feel better about this episode. What do you guys think? They're nodding, by the way. You can't hear them because this is excellent equipment. But they are nodding and they're saying it was a great episode. So let's give me an air horn. So yeah, I'll see you next week for another episode. I hope you have a super day. Don't forget, every jote is a goat in the making. And yeah, have a lekker one. Thanks.